Hi, Gene here with today's thought, but first, welcome and a thank you. A welcome to new subscribers, because I seem to have gotten, more than I usually get. I mean, we're not talking millions yet. Maybe we will in the future. But the pace has picked up a little bit, and maybe, I guess, more and more people are learning about this vlog, and I really appreciate it. So I just wanted to say thanks, and I wanted to say welcome. I hope I'll get more. I hope you'll spread the news, but whether you spread the news or not, I really do appreciate that you take the time to listen to my thoughts. And more than that, I'm not just getting more subscribers, I'm getting more comments, and that's what I really appreciate. And not just comments to me or agreeing with me, but you're starting to debate among yourselves, which I really like to see, because I like to, obviously if you've been watching this vlog, you know I'm a conservative, but I try to acknowledge the other side and listen to their arguments. I'm always happy to listen, so I'm glad to see that you're all discussing among yourselves, and I hope we see more discussion. Now, today's thought, we're going to talk about our Democratic friends, our friends on the left, their two favorite activities, which are one, taxing, and number two, spending the money that they tax. And you might have noticed that we've gotten a few we have deficits that, as far as the eye can see, and an enormous debt, over 32 trillion the last time I checked, and going up. And the Democrats, on the one hand, they want to spend the money, and then they say we have to reduce the deficit by taxing. The problem with that is, as history has shown, ever since there's been a Democratic Party, they just spend the money. You raise taxes and the deficit continues to go up. But one of their go-to arguments is, we have the Trump tax cuts that will expire in about a year, in 2025, sometime in 2025, if they are not renewed. And if the Democrats are in control, that's not going to happen. Definitely, if we have a Democratic president, that won't happen. And then we're going to have economic problems, because we've been raising revenue because of the Trump tax cuts, and I'm going to give you the figures today from the Congressional Budget Office. Okay, the government, this is not some conservative website, this is the Congressional Budget Office, this is their numbers. But we have to go all the way back to JFK, John F. Kennedy. He was the first one, and he was a Democrat, to call for tax cuts to spur economic growth. There is, if you go way back and look, you'll find a video. You can put it. Maybe I'll put a link to it in the description, to JFK talking about the benefits of tax cuts, and the tax receipts have gone way up since JFK was president. So his tax cuts, they paid for themselves. And because you have to remember, you wouldn't remember, I'm telling you now, unless you were that old, but tax before Kennedy, the top rate was 90%. He reduced it only to 70%, but we got great economic growth for that, because the trend was down, and we've never gone back to 90%, and we've continued to amass tax revenues. And then there was Reagan. He voted for Kennedy. That was the last Kennedy he voted for. And the Reagan tax cuts, he was just picking up from what Kennedy did. So he was doing something that a Democratic president supported and had enacted into law. Or actually, I think it was enacted into law during the Johnson administration, because unfortunately Kennedy was assassinated. But either way, the tax cuts went into effect, and they worked. And then you had the Reagan tax cuts, and they paid Reagan's last State of the Union address. He read, because when the tax cuts first went into effect, the deficit went up, but he announced a reduction in the deficit. His last his last State of the Union speech, the deficit had gone down, and obviously we had, and he came into office with a great recession, and the government was spending money, but because again, as they always do, and we were in the economic times were pretty bad. We had something called the misery index, which you wouldn't remember if you weren't around then. But the interest rate was which was way into the double digits. I remember I had a 5-year CD, and the interest rate was 13% a year. Can you imagine that? A CD paying 13% a year? That's how bad inflation was. And then you had the unemployment rate, and you multiply the unemployment rate by the interest rate, and that was the misery index. Now we don't even have that now. Maybe we will if things continue as they are. But the point is that the Reagan tax cuts more than paid for themselves, which brings us up now to the Trump tax cuts. And that's what I want to give you the numbers today from the Congressional Budget Office, not out of my head or from some just some opinion maker. This is from the Congressional Budget Office. These are the official figures. So I'm putting them up. I'm going to put them up in a second. The tax cuts were enacted in 2017. That's when the Congress passed it. They went into effect in 2018. And now let's look at the actual numbers. So here I'm putting up the chart. 2017, that's when the tax cuts went into effect, and $3.31 trillion in tax revenues, okay? Then 2018, when they went into effect, $3.33 trillion. So you've already had a slight increase. But then look, 2019, 3.46, 2020, 3.47. And look at that enormous jump. 2021, 4.4 trillion. And then 2022, 4.89 trillion. And then we have, what do we have? We have the Inflation Reduction Act. So now let's talk about the Inflation Reduction Act. An Inflation Reduction Act that did not reduce inflation. Inflation is still going up. Last time I checked, prices are 16% higher than they were when Biden took office, and it's still going up, albeit at a slower pace, but that's because the Fed has been jacking up interest rates. That's how you do it. That's what Volcker had to do. I was talking about the misery index a little while ago. That's he jacked. I think he jacked rates up to 21%, I think, way up there, and sent the country into a recession, a very deep recession. But that's what he had to do to get inflation down. It's nothing to do with the Inflation Reduction Act. And in fact, you had Joe Biden only a day or two ago making a speech, I think in Philadelphia somewhere, making a speech or Wisconsin, it doesn't matter. He said that he was sorry that he called it the Inflation Reduction Act, because the true purpose of the act, he said, was just to increase spending on green energy and to increase taxes, which I'll get to in a second. But that's an admission from himself. But he has to remember that if he had not called it the Inflation Reduction Act, if he'd called it a spending on green energy act, it would never have passed. So just another example of the duplicity of this president. But anyways, let's talk about the taxes that are in this Inflation Reduction Act that the Congress passed and enacted. So all these tax increases went into effect. So going down the list here, bear with me as I refer to my notes here. Actually, maybe I'll link to this article so you can read it for yourself in detail. Anyways, here we go. $6.5 billion natural gas tax, which will increase household energy bills. $12 billion crude oil tax, which will increase household costs. So let's go through. So bear with me as I refer to my notes, and I'll go through the list. This is in the future tense because this article was written just as the the taxes went into effect, just as the law was passed, but before they went into effect. But it seems to have, well, we all know, if you're paying if your utility bills went way up, now you know why. So here we go. $6.5 billion natural gas tax, which will increase household energy bills. $12 billion crude oil tax, which will increase household costs. $1.2 billion coal tax, which will increase household energy bills. $74 billion stock tax, which will hit your nest egg. 401ks, IRAs, and pension plans. And last but not least, $225 billion corporate income tax, which will be passed on to households, of course. That's something our Democratic friends never seem to get. Corporations, businesses have to make a profit. If you raise their taxes, they pass it on. They have to increase the cost of their products and services to pay the taxes. So there you go. And the last point was that the CBO is projecting, the government is quote unquote disappointed that tax receipts are not going to meet their expectations this year, for the fiscal year 2023, not going to meet expectations. Well, now you know why. So you know what happened when Trump cut taxes. You see what happened when Biden raised taxes, and you can pretty much guess what's going to happen if the Biden tax increases remain in effect and the Trump taxes are allowed to expire. So enjoy the hopefully only another year and a half of this horrible administration to which we are all held hostage. But in the meantime, if you could, that's my thought for today. If you could subscribe, that would really be great. And share this video with anyone you think would benefit from it. But most of all, if you come back and see me again, that would really be great. We'd love to see all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.